When someone throws a subtle insult, they are not expressing themselves. They are testing your nervous system. If you explode, they win. If you shrink, they win. Today, I will show you the mirror technique, a cold psychological reversal that makes disrespect collapse under its own weight while you stay completely still. An insult is rarely about words. It is a probe, a thin psychological blade slicked under your armor to see whether you flinch, explain, or bleed in public. That passive-aggressive comment at the table, in the office, in the group chat, is not casual. It is calculated. They want your reaction because reaction is proof they reached you. And the moment you rush to defend yourself, you hand them status they did not earn. But when the blade hits iron, the game changes. The mirror technique is not about arguing better. It is about reflecting disrespect back into the room so clearly that the other person feels the ugliness of their own move. No shouting, no over-explaining, no emotional donation, just pressure, silence, and control. And once you learn how to do that, people start thinking twice before testing you at all. An insult is almost never just an insult. It is a test, a probe, a tiny blade slicked between your ribs to see whether you still belong to your emotions. That is why passive-aggressive people are so irritating. Not because they are powerful, because they are sneaky. They do not come at you like warriors. They come at you like thieves, a joke with poison in it, a compliment with a hook inside it, a smile that asks for blood, and most men lose right there, not because the insult was strong, because the reaction was expensive. They flush red. They explain too much. They defend themselves in public. They try to prove they are not hurt, while proving exactly that. That is the trap. The disrespectful person does not need to beat you. He just needs to make you abandon your own center. He needs one emotional twitch, one rushed sentence, one crack in the face, one sign that he now controls the temperature in your body. That is all. And once he gets that, the room feels it. But there is another way to move. Not louder, not more aggressive, colder, more deliberate. The mirror technique is not about attacking back. It is about becoming so composed that the other person is forced to stand in front of what they just said. No noise, no pleading, no theatrical toughness, just stillness, pressure, and timing. By the end of this, you will understand how to see the jab for what it is, how to stop paying for cheap insults with expensive emotion, and how to turn disrespect into a moment that exposes the other person instead of you. Because once you understand the game, you stop bleeding for other people's entertainment. And that is where the first rule begins. Quote, the anatomy of a jab. Passive aggression is the weapon of cowards, not because it is harmless, because it hides. A direct man says what he means and accepts the consequences. A passive-aggressive man wants the impact of aggression without the risk of honesty. So, he wraps contempt in humor. He disguises disrespect as banter. He drops the knife, then pretends you are dramatic for noticing the wound. You have seen it before. Relax. I was just joking. Wow, sensitive today. I didn't mean anything by it. That language is not accidental. It is camouflage. The whole move depends on confusion. If you react too hard, you look unstable. If you say nothing from weakness, they feel permission. If you laugh along to keep the peace, you train people to keep testing you. That is why so many men stay trapped. They do not know whether they are dealing with humor, disrespect, or social warfare. And while they are busy decoding the tone, the other person is already studying the reaction. So here is the first shift. Stop hearing the words first. See the intent first. Ask yourself, was this designed to build respect or to extract a reaction? That question changes everything, because the moment you stop treating passive aggression like random conversation, You stop answering it like a confused victim. Now you can see the move clearly. This was not warmth, not clumsy honesty, not harmless teasing. It was a probe for weakness. And when you see a probe, you do not panic. You observe. You slow down. You let the other person reveal more than they planned. A weak man hears a jab and thinks, I need to fix this right now. A strategic man hears a jab and thinks, interesting. You are showing me your nature. That is power, not immediate revenge, not ego, clarity, because clarity protects dignity better than anger ever will. But seeing the trap is only the beginning. The real damage starts when you pay for that 10-cent insult with $100 of emotion. As Chapter 2, The Reaction Economy. Why do you pay $100 of anger for a 10-cent insult? That is the question most men never ask. They act as if anger is free. It is not. Anger costs posture. It costs timing. It costs language. It costs the ability to think while the room is watching. And worst of all, it transfers power. The person who insults you usually invests very little. A smirk, a sentence, a look. That is all they spend. Then you do the rest. You raise your voice. You over-explain. You replay the moment all night. You carry it in your chest long after they forgot it happened. So who paid more? You did. That is the reaction economy. They offer a tiny spark. You provide the fire. And the second you do that, the power shifts. Now, the room is not watching their disrespect. The room is watching your loss of control. The original offense becomes smaller than your reaction to it. That is why emotional men are easy to manipulate. Not because they feel, because they leak. A man who leaks on command can be steered on command. He can be baited, rushed, cornered, distracted and framed. All with very little effort. But the composed man is expensive to move. That is what you need to become. Expensive to move. Think about the table, the office, the family gathering, the group chat. Someone throws a sly comment at you because they want proof that they can reach inside your nervous system and twist it. Your first instinct will be to answer quickly. Kill that instinct. Speed is often submission in disguise. The first display of power is not a clever line. It is the pause, a clean pause. One breath, a still face, no nervous smile, no defensive laugh, no hurry to clear your name in a courtroom, nobody appointed. That pause does two things at once. First, it stops the transfer of power. Second, it creates pressure. Because most disrespectful people are brave only while your emotions are doing the work for them. The moment you stay calm, they are left alone with their own ugliness. Now the room has space to feel it too. Restraint is a gate. It decides what enters you and what dies outside. And once a man learns that, his whole presence changes. He stops being available to every provocation. He stops donating energy to every insecure fool with a mouth. He becomes selective, measured, harder to reach, and that change begins before you speak a single word. Because before the verbal mirror, before the cold question, before the dismissal, there is something even more immediate. Your face, your eyes, your stillness. And that is where the room starts to freeze. Asterisk 3, the cold stare. Before language there is presence, and presence speaks first. Most men think power begins when they find the right comeback. It does not. By then you are already late. The first battle is fought in your face, your posture, your tempo, and your eyes. That is why the cold stare matters, not as theater. Not as some cartoon act of intimidation, but as proof that your nervous system is not available for hijacking. When someone drops a passive-aggressive comment, the room instantly looks for movement. A twitch, a laugh that came too fast, eyes darting, lips tightening, shoulders shifting. So your first job is simple. Become still, not stiff. Still. Let your face go neutral. Let your body settle. Hold eye contact just long enough to create weight, not long enough to become melodrama. You are not trying to scare them. You are showing that nothing entered you. That alone changes the air. Because disrespect depends on momentum. It wants the joke to slide through before anyone examines it. It wants speed. It wants social blur. Your stillness ruins that. Stillness slows the room down. And when the room slows down, people start to feel what was actually said. That is why silence is so uncomfortable for the person who started it. He was counting on noise, but the cold stare strips away the cover. Now there is just him, his comment, and the weight of what he tried to smuggle in. Picture it. A man says something slick at the table. Not direct enough to challenge, not innocent enough to ignore. Everybody half laughs, waiting to see what you will do. Most men rush. You do not. You look at him, not with rage, not with wounded eyes, with the expression of a man who just heard something strangely revealing. That look says more than a speech ever could. It says, I heard you clearly. It says, I am not rattled. It says, now wear what you just said. Predatory personalities test for emotional softness by creating uncertainty. If they can make you question whether you are allowed to respond, they already have 1 foot inside your frame. That is why your body must answer before your mouth does. Your body must say, I am not confused. I am not rushed. I am not yours to move. That is the freeze. And once you master that, you will notice something almost amusing. People start correcting themselves. They start backtracking. They start adding, I'm just messing with you. Good. Let them work. Let them feel the silence they created. Because the man who controls tempo controls meaning. And once your stillness has frozen the room, the next move becomes devastatingly simple. You do not attack. You reflect. Asked, Chapter 4. The verbal mirror. The verbal mirror is one of the cleanest forms of social power because it does not need aggression. It needs precision. The goal is not to insult them back. That is what amateurs do. They get hit, then swing wide. Now both people look emotional. The mirror does the opposite. It lifts the insult into the light and makes the other person explain it. Passive aggression lives in half-light. It needs ambiguity. The mirror removes ambiguity. So when they make the joke, you do not rush to prove it offended you. You slow down. You look at them and you say calmly, say that again. Or explain what you meant. Or the sharpest one, explain why that was funny. That line is brutal for one reason. It forces intent into language. And once intent is forced into language, the camouflage disappears. Now they have a problem. If they repeat it clearly, they expose themselves. If they backpedal, they weaken themselves. If they say, it was just a joke, they admit they cannot stand behind their own move. Either way, you win by staying composed. You are not giving them your anger. You are giving them themselves. Imagine a co-worker says, careful. We know you get emotional about these things. A weak response is immediate denial. What? No, I don't. What are you talking about? That is already a loss. Now you are inside their frame, defending a label they placed on you. The mirror response is slower. You look at him, pause, then say, what exactly was the point of that comment? Now the room turns. Because the energy just shifted from your reaction to his intent. He has to answer for the move. Here is another example. Someone says, wow, nice of you to finally show up on time. You could defend, you could explain traffic, you could try to be witty, or you could look at them and say, you wanted that to land a certain way. Go ahead, say it directly. That is a mirror. It tells them no masks. The mirror hands ownership right back to them. It is not loud, it is not messy, it is judicial. And once you do that a few times, your reputation changes. People start understanding that if they throw something slick, they may have to stand in the center of the room and explain it under pressure. That alone prevents future tests. As Griff. Chapter 5. Refusing the frame. Every insult carries a frame. A hidden invitation. It says, react from here. Defend yourself here. Feel small here. And the moment you accept that invitation, even to fight back, you are already standing on their ground. That is why refusing the frame is so powerful. You stop treating the insult like a real definition of you. You treat it like a strange symptom in them. When someone throws disrespect at you, most men assume the moment is now about them. Wrong. A strategic man sees something else. He sees a person revealing their condition, their insecurity, their need for attention. And once you see it that way, your energy changes immediately. Now you are not under attack. You are observing a malfunction. That is why one of the strongest silent attitudes you can carry is this. That was odd, not painful, not threatening. Odd, like watching someone cough into their own hand and pretend it was confidence. Sometimes you can even verbalize that energy, not with sarcasm, with calm detachment. That was a strange thing to say. Or, you seem unusually committed to that. Or, interesting, you needed that moment. These lines do not defend you, they diagnose them. That is the frame break. You are no longer arguing content, you are identifying behavior. And behavior is much harder for them to escape from, because now the room is not asking whether you were insulted. The room is wondering why they needed to do that in the first place. It takes real internal order to look at disrespect and remain psychologically unclaimed by it. That is sovereignty. You are not here to win every dirty little exchange. You are here to remain the man who cannot be cheaply bought into one. Insults stop feeling heavy. They start feeling informative. You stop asking, why did they say that to me? And you start asking, what does that reveal about them? Chapter 6. The Pivot of Power. Most men think the goal is to survive disrespect. It is not. The goal is to reduce its importance so completely that the person delivering it feels small for trying. That is the pivot of power. You do not walk away angry. You walk away bored. Anger still gives them relevance. Boredom says the opposite. It says, you are not even an event. That is why dismissal is often stronger than destruction. A rude man usually wants to provoke you into emotional chaos or establish himself as significant. The pivot denies both. You simply remove meaning. That can happen in one sentence. Anyway, that was unnecessary. Back to the point. Or even cleaner, you answer the real topic and ignore the poison completely. That is not avoidance. That is selection. You are deciding what deserves energy and what gets left on the floor. Picture a group setting. Someone slips in a comment meant to lower your status. You freeze. You mirror if needed. You break the frame if needed. And then, instead of circling the moment like a wounded animal, you pivot. You turn to someone else. You continue the discussion. You move the room forward as if their little performance failed to qualify as important. The weak man gets hooked and spends 5 minutes proving he is above it. The strategic man shows he is above it by moving on. Attention is social oxygen. When you keep feeding disrespect with focus, you are giving oxygen to something that should have died on contact. The pivot cuts the oxygen, and suddenly the person who tried to control the exchange is left behind by the exchange itself. This man does not stay where disrespect wants him. He leaves it beneath him. Chapter 7. The Unflinching Mind. Techniques matter, but identity decides whether you can actually use them under pressure. If a man's nervous system still needs to be liked or approved of by everyone in the room, he will still crack the moment disrespect carries social heat. Because the true wound is not the insult. It is dependence. The dependence on clearing your name every time someone dirty speaks it. The unflinching mind is built on one brutal truth. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional interior. Read that again in your bones. Not everyone deserves access. Some people should only ever meet your surface, your still face, your measured voice, your standards, your boundaries. Nothing more. Strength begins when the gate closes. When you stop believing every provocation deserves a response. That is inner sovereignty, and it changes how you interpret everything. A passive-aggressive comment is no longer a wound. It is information. It tells you who is petty, who is envious, who needs social cover to be hostile. This is why emotional discipline is not suppression. It is filtration. You still see the move. You still understand the intent. But you do not swallow it whole. You decide whether it deserves correction, exposure, or dismissal. That decision is power. Start here. When someone tries to bait you, delay your reaction by one breath. Then ask, what are they trying to buy from me right now? Anger, defense, attention, approval, urgency? Once you see the purchase they are trying to make, you can refuse the sale. That is the unflinching mind. Nothing gets bought without your consent. Not your peace, not your rhythm, not your self-respect. He does not look hard because he is loud. He looks hard because he is undisturbed. He does not dominate by always speaking. He dominates by never being easily moved. He can wait. He can stare. He can let silence expose weakness. He can speak with precision and stop there. He can leave the room with no emotional debris behind him. That is final form. A man who does not need to react to feel real. A man who can hear poison and remain stone. And once you become that man, people notice. Your presence starts teaching people how far they can go. Most disrespect lives only where access is cheap, become expensive, become measured, become difficult to read and impossible to rush. The governed man is dangerous because he belongs to himself. That is the real mirror of composure. It does not just show other people who they are. It proves that you finally know who you are. The oath. Disrespect only becomes a weapon when you volunteer your nervous system to carry it. You do not need to win every exchange. You do not need to answer every fool. You need composure. You need standards. You need the discipline to let weak people expose themselves while you remain unclaimed. That is power. Cold power. Clean power. The kind that does not beg, bark, or break. So if this message is for you, let this be the oath. I do not react for their entertainment. I do not explain myself to the disrespectful. I do not hand my state to cheap people. I stay still. I stay sharp. I stay sovereign. Write I stay sovereign in the comments. And subscribe if you refuse to bleed for their entertainment.